So, welcome everyone to today's Tech Talk in our new Tech Talk studio. So, very happy to have you here. Today we are going to talk about our new firmware ZLD 510 for our security devices like this one. And we will also talk about a new service recently launched, the Cloud Email Security. And again, we have a solution window where we talk about some questions that we usually get. We talk about feedback and we will give you an outlook on what's going to happen. Don't worry about the material or the recording. Everything will be shared after the session. So give us a bit of a couple of hours and then you will have it online available on the Campus Academy. So before we start, I would like to welcome my guests and co-speaker. So Thorsten, welcome.
Thank you.
Thorsten and Tobias. And Thorsten is our MDM for security, Market Development Manager for security in Europe. And Tobias is our technical specialist for security aspects, you could say. And welcome, Tobias. Also.
Welcome, good morning.
Great. So before we start, Tobias, maybe you can tell us a bit more about, ZLD 510, I have my devices. Can I use it on all devices or are there any limitations? Can I use it on cloud mode, on-premise mode? So what's your recommendation? What are the differences?
Yeah, so ZLD 5.10 is available for all the latest generation of hardware firewalls.
Okay.
This includes the ATP series, UC Flex series and VPN series. And so far for cloud mode, we also support now the UC20 VPN and UC20W VPN. And we have it available by a wizard, so we can support the on-premise mode or the cloud mode with these devices. So the customer can decide during the first setup if you want to manage the device locally or with the Nebula cloud mode.
And of course, there are different features supported in different environments, and we will talk about this probably a bit later during the session. Right, so before we go into details of features, enhancement and richness of 510. Thorsten, can you tell us a bit more about this cloud email security service that we have recently launched now? What does it mean for the customer? How can I configure it and what is it? Do I need any hardware for it, for example, and so on?
Yeah, actually we are Zyxel, we are always looking at the latest solutions in the markets, and what we clearly see over the years, of course, is that a lot of cloud SaaS services, software as a service services are launched, and of course we are looking also into this. So what we see is that local email servers are getting less and less in the market. We have Microsoft 365, Google Mail, etc., etc. So this is also something we need to see when we look at solutions. So we have found a partner called Siren, where we have actually a solution in our portfolio now based on their technology. And the good thing about it is clearly that a cloud solution like what we have from Siren here is a good management for the email accounts. It gives an immediate threat protection because they put all these elements into the cloud. And it's also including malware, it's including anti-spam, it's also including phishing. So this is all very important, of course, today. And another element, of course, what we can tell is that when you look at the statistics, we have a really good statistic part in this solution. So you can see how much malware was, how good we defended against the malware or the anti-spam. So from this point of view, you see really what's happening in your mailboxes. What are you defending against, etc. You can also see that in a more granular way, looking into transactions, etc. So from this point of view, we really believe these cloud solutions are really essential now to have a complete security concept and to be able to, basically give an overall access management to the network.
That's great. So I don't need any hardware for that, yeah?
No, this is a solution which is hardware independent.
All right. In the same time, I know that there is also a trial possibility. I can try it, but Tobias, can you give us a bit more details on this cloud email security?
Sure. So cloud email security is no need for a hardware. So on premise previously you need an UTM firewall in between to check all the services. Now you have this combined into cloud, connect to your different third-party email server, and it's a more easy system now. It's now linked together with the SSL inspection feature. It also supports real-time intelligence updates, and you can deploy it much faster as you just need to modify the MX record. The detection could have different arts. For anti-malware, we can find viruses, worms, and Trojans. We can also detect fake URLs. If you got a shipment news and you should to click this URL, it can check if this is a real URL or not. And for sure, if you have any spam wave you need to stop, we have the anti-spam module. This is a compare matrix to the standalone on-premise anti-spam and the new cloud email security. So the main change is the MX record, that we can scan it in the cloud, and then we are supporting much more security features and also encrypted emails. This tool cannot support Gmail, Outlook.com, so we must have a real domain, a company domain for example, and you must be able to modify the MX record on this domain, and after that you are able to configure the settings. Let's see how the flow works. So the sender is sending an email to the sender email server, but the sender email server have a DNS server and modify the MX records. So it's forward to the CES scan server. Here we are checking the email, if that is a spam email or a clean email, and after verify, we query the DNS server again, and this time the DNS server mention what is the real recipient email server, and we will forward the email, and finally the clean email can reach the user. And to get a trial license, you just need to go to myzyxel.com and register an account if you not have already one. And from here you can activate the trial license in the left bottom corner. And after you activate the trial license, you can log into the portal. So we can have a look how this is looking. So in myzyxel.com, on the left side, you have cloud service, cloud email security. And from here, a pop-up will show that you can log in. So let me re-log in with my credentials. And after you activate the pop-up for the trial, you will find the CS information and in linked licenses that the trial is activated. And from here you can then go to the CES portal login and also log in on this one. Then you are on the cloud email security configuration page. You see a lot of reporting options here, like what is already detected, how many things are scanned. You can set up notifications, what you want for the detection, and of course the email server itself. So it's under settings and users. From here you are set up the users you need, for example, test user, and then your alias, your name, and every email inbox you want to check. And on email services, you are setting up the email server here. So for example, your company, and the email server SMTP and secondary. And if you allow this and we check this is a valid value, then you can add the MX record to change the routing way. And this is all for the setup. Afterwards, you are just selecting, okay, what you want to check, like anti-malware, like malware outbreaks, or also spam and phishing. Just enable this feature and select what should happen here, and then your cloud email security is already configured.
Perfect. Thanks, Tobias. And if that was too fast, again, the slides will be available, but also on support.zyxel.eu in our knowledge base, you will also find articles around this, how to set it up, the cloud email security. So I always invite you to have a look there. And then the licenses. Maybe you, Thorsten?
Yeah, so this is a licensed service we are offering. Actually, we started with this, we launched it last month. So you have basically the option to use 5, 10, 25 or 50 users, and you can buy it as a license through our normal channels, through our marketplace. So there are a lot of options how you can get to these licenses.
Great, thanks for that, Thorsten. So that was the email cloud security now, or cloud email security that way. Coming back to 5.10, Thorsten, we have this new feature called Device Insight, and I know it's a brilliant feature, especially when you have a lot of devices and working from home and so on. So can you maybe give us a high spot on this one? What does it mean really?
Yeah, of course. Device Insight for me is a very exciting feature, because with all what you mentioned, you have a lot of bring your own device, IoT devices, wired, wireless, etc. So to have a good transparency of these devices, Device Insight is the right tool to really see them. So what you basically do is you categorize the devices, you show what operating system they have, and then you build basically a classification.
Okay.
And for this classification you can get rules, policies, and then you can say, I take an example, for example, a NAS should not talk to the outside world, so you could say the NAS is not doing this in the future, and this gives you, of course, a very granular way to defend against the malware, against the attacks. And of course, you can also, and Tobias will show this now in a minute, how it's completely see, but then you can actually go into the GUI, have the listing, and then you can do also some actions like whatever this client is allowed to do or not allowed to do. So you can basically see the parameters and set the rules you want to set.
So it's a great additional feature, security.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's great. Tobias, maybe you can show us a bit more detail, yeah?
Sure. So Device Insight is scanning the whole network and is showing all the information. It can find NAS stations, smartphones, computer, printer, phones, and much more. So for example, you have a mixed network, then Device Insight will detect computer on Windows, computer on macOS, computer or printer with Linux operating system. So all of these things will be listened. And how it can find these devices, it uses the protocol DHCP and HTTP, and also partially the LLDP protocol. It's collecting the information and bringing it into the web interface. And the web interface has some database to recognize this device correctly. So a use case, for example, could be that the customer have some NAS stations, but only allow Windows clients to access this NAS station, because the whole company is only using Windows. So you just have a profile that all Windows clients are allowed to make a connection to the NAS stations, but if you have Mac OS clients, they are not allowed and they will be rejected. And the setup is pretty simple. So first you go to Configuration Object Device Insight and you enable this feature. The next step, you need to create a profile for Device Insight. So you go to the Add button and now you have the option to select your needs. In this example, we are selecting computer and Windows, and these two parameters acting together. So every computer with Windows will be part of this profile. The next step, we are linking this device profile into a firewall rule, and to do that the firewall rule will have a new menu point which is calling device, and every profile you created is available in this drop down list. So in this example we create a rule that we say to reach the server only Windows devices are allowed, and we create a second rule that to reach the server every other device the action is denied, so we rejecting every other device. Make sure that you create the allow rule first and the deny rule as second priority, because our firewall is working from the top to the bottom and the first matching rule will be applied and the other will not be checked. And in Device Insight, there's also a monitor table. So if you move from configuration Device Insight to monitor Device Insight, it will already found all the clients in your network, and you can do different things. For example, you can add them into a block list or whitelist if this is a client you don't want to have in your network. You can also change the description if there is no description and you just have a MAC address. Then feel free to give it your own naming that you can identify the device afterwards again. And you can download this list file for support interactions. So if something is wrong classified, feel free to download the file and let us know, so we will fix it in our database. And we have 4 statuses here. The first status will be online, which means the device is always online or at right now stage online. Then we have offline, which means the device is more than 10 minutes not sending a traffic. And we have a block if you manually block the device. And we have CDR block. So CDR is an advanced UTM feature. And in case of CDRs blocking the client, it will be also shown in the Device Insight table. CDR I will explain in a few minutes. And if you have some clients connected to other Zyxel hardware, this will show as connected to, for example, to this access point. So you can easily identify if you have an issue with a client, or if you have an issue with 4 clients and all are connected to the same access point, then maybe this access point get not enough PoE power, for example, or is overloaded with clients and you need to set up load balancing. So you get deeper insight about your network and you can already adjust the settings in the firewall. And Device Insight also have a log, so you can move the log category to Device Insight and you see all information filtered for Device Insight. If you want to go to enhance this, we have also a free GeoIP feature on our devices. So you can go to configuration address and create a geography object. In my example, I use now the geography North Korea. And if you create this object, you can link it at the same firewall rule as you put previously the device Windows. And in this case now, you are only allow Windows devices to your server from North Korea. So this is an example. You can also do it for Germany, for United Kingdom, what you want. Then you have, so for example, if you just have clients from Germany, then you only allow clients from Germany. There is no need that other countries from worldwide are trying to connect to your server.
Great. How did you configure North Korea? I mean, this is a bit weird.
North Korea, it looks good during the drop down. I
Okay.
thought we choose North Korea. That looks good. Yeah.
Choose an interesting country. Okay, I see. Thank you very much for that, Tobias.
Thank you.
I would like to emphasize once again, if you have any questions, you can use the question area in your environment, and I hopefully can see that here and we can answer your question. So I do know we do have a couple of more security enhancement and features. So Tobias, can you maybe tell us a bit more about the 5.10?
Yes. So one step would be the CDR. And the CDR is an advanced feature for IPS, anti-malware and URL threat filter. And this feature can help to disconnect the client connection if this client is doing some unwanted action in your network or sending spam, something like this. So it works like we have a firewall and switch and a few clients, and now we have one client who makes some unsafe connections to a web page. So we want to isolate this client from the rest of the good working network. So in this moment, CDR will be in action and block the IP connection, disconnect this client, and this client cannot do anything more. The same happens for Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is one more step enhanced. The client will disassociate from the access point, and after reassociation, the client will be put in a separate quarantined VLAN and cannot reach the other Wi-Fi clients. So this is pretty helpful security feature if you have a client which should not be take the actions which he is doing, just isolate him from the normal network, fix it, and then it can back to the network. And the client will also get a message that he is aware of the scenario, So it says the client have limited network access for now and need to be in touch with the administrator to fix it. It's also showing the reason, what he was doing wrong, and then this can be checked together with the log from the firewall, and we can fix this issue.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Then we have more nice new features. One is the brute force protection. So the scenario, for example, would be that a hacker with an automated tool is trying a lot of standard passwords, like root, like sudo, admin, and so on. And it could spam the log of the firewall and also decrease the performance if there's too much of this hacker stuff ongoing. And with the IPS brute force attack, you can now have a few signatures here, which are controlling the logins. And you can customize this, so you can in the end say, someone who wants to log into my device is only allowed to do it 4 times from one IP address. And if he fails more than 4 times, he will be added temporarily for a few minutes to a block list and cannot try any more passwords. So you will interrupt the hacker's password list, which may include thousands of entries, after 4 entries, and he will not have any more fun to continue on your device and will stop this action. And also in this log you can find this quite easy, so if some logins happen, then the system protection is stopping it and put the address who try this, it could be a local IP or a WAN IP, into the logout state. Next topic, we have two-factor authentication. This is quite important in 2021 as we have username and password, but an additional key is an additional security enhancement. And previously it was only available for EKE version number 1, and now we enhanced it to also support EKE version 2. That means if you build up, for example, a VPN tunnel, L2TP or SSL VPN tunnel, you get after login with your credentials an SMS or email with a two-factor link, and after you submit this link, you will get the access to the network. The configuration will be in VPN gateway, which is the phase 1 setting of the tunnel. You need to enable the extended authentication protocol for the user login, and as second step, the two-factor authentication. And the two-factor authentication also needs to be enabled in the object under two-factor authentication again, and you need to select every user you want to participate into two-factor authentication, that this scenario is working. And we are also working on Google two-factor integration for on-premise devices. So if you are interested to use Google two-factor app instead of SMS or email, this will be released later. If you already want to use it, you can bring your firewall device into Nebula Cloud. Here it is already supported.
Perfect.
But then we have another security enhancement. We know that the default configuration file have default ports like port 80 for HTTP, port 443 for HTTPS, or port 22 for SSH. And also hacker knows these standard ports. And they are trying first on the standard ports to join your device. So in case of you still have this set up, it will now pop up a security wizard to remind you to modify the ports to a more secure ports. And this security wizard you can also find from the policy control. So it will always display if your configuration is not safe enough or too much on a default standard level. Then you will see this button, Update Security Settings. You can click it, it will open this wizard, and from here you can enable it, change the port. In the backend, it will automatically create your firewall rule, move the port to the new one, and you are more secure with your device. Yeah.
We have a question
Before
we leave two-factor authentication, and there is a question if this can be used for Windows AD users.
Yes, it can be, because you are, I go back to the page here. Here you are selecting the user and groups, and the user and groups can be also radius users or ID users. There's no problem.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be a local user on the firewall. Just bind your Active Directory with the firewall, then you can query all the users on your AD.
Perfect. So I think we answered that one, how to configure it, and that it is possible. Thanks for that. And we had the last feature to share.
Yes, so the next new feature is the DHCP table monitor. Previously we have it on the dashboard at a very small window size without any more features. The only feature was a refresh button. Now we integrate this under monitor DHCP table, and from here it has much more features. For example, you can filter the interface to a VLAN interface, and you can easily monitor all the clients related to this specific interface. You also have the option to use IP MAC binding here, so you can reserve some IP address to make the IP address static, and you can unreserve it. And we have an export feature as a CSV file. You can export all your DHCP clients for your topology reference, for example, or also to send this to support if you have an open case. We can identify which client is on which network, have which IP address. So this is a new feature of ZLD 5.10. And if you want to do the other way, you want to import a file, you can create it before you deploy the network to have all your static devices, and just import the CSV file, and all these DHCP addresses are directly reserved and synced to the new DHCP table monitor.
Right. So these are the highlights of the new features and improvements. I think it's super feature rich, 5.10. This is great. Thorsten, did you forget anything from your point of view?
No, I think it's very clear. I mean, this is all connected with the whole Zero Trust feature sets we are building. We will build more features in the future, reacting to the changing environment. But I think this set is already quite comprehensive and, from my point of view, very impressive. Yeah.
Super, great for that. So before we close the session for today, we always have a section called Solution Window, and there we are answering questions that you have raised towards our support, and we see that there is a number of customers asking this. And today we talk about IPsec performance, and over to Tobias, how can this be improved? That's the question.
Yeah, we always hear that performance can be fine-tuned a bit, and we always try to get a better performance with every firmware update. And in ZLD 5.10 we implement a new CLI command, which is calling crypto boost -TCP. If you enter this CLI command, your IPsec traffic will be changed from single core to multi-core CPU, and something in the packet order is also changed in the backend. So it can be more than 180% better VPN throughput in a few scenarios. We already test this with some customer, and they say it's amazing how much faster it could be. So currently this command is still in beta. That is why you need to enable it manually through SSH, through the CLI console. We have a setup guide here. You can check this on our support portal, how exactly this works, and try out if it's for you also a better IPsec performance. We will check this a few more weeks, and if all works fine, then we will activate this command by default in the next firmware release.
Great. Before we leave that, we have a question there. If it's crypto boost TCP requires Zyxel devices on both sides?
No, it doesn't require Zyxel device on both sides. It can also help, for example, for a client-to-side connection. So in this moment you only have IPsec client. It's in the end checking the TCP traffic from your WAN port on the device, and here it can already help without a Zyxel device on both sides.
Perfect. And Tobias, how can our customers make sure they always have the latest firmware release on their device running?
Yeah, there are a few options here. One option is to use the Cloud Helper, that you have the automatic update activated on the device. Then you will always get a push notification when you log in to the firewall configuration. You will get a My Zyxel email newsletter in case of there's a new release version available. Or also on our support portal, we have an article with weekly firmware versions, which you can follow, and if you follow it with every new update, you will get also an email notification that this article is updated, and then you will find a new weekly version.
Perfect, thanks for that. So this is great. If you have any feedback for us, you can always share it on academy@zyxel.eu, and we're always trying to answer some of the questions that we are getting. And one question we got from Marco last time, and he wants to know more about VLAN configuration examples. So I'm sure you have something.
Yeah, and the requested examples we have created this month. So there are 2 new articles in our knowledge base. One is the easy VLAN understanding, and the second one is the expert VLAN understanding. So we are explaining step by step what a VLAN is, what is a tagged VLAN, when you need to select tagged or untagged VLAN. We are explaining about the port types, fixed, forbidden, or normal VLAN, and we explain the difference when you need to use a tag and when you change it to a PVID without a tag. So all these examples with quite easy topology we are explaining in the easy VLAN understanding article. And in case of you are already aware of VLAN and you want to go deeper into it, we have the expert article where we split the package and we are checking Wireshark traces, which is much more deeper and detailed.
Super. And all this information is in our slide pack, which will be available on academy.zyxel.eu. There you can download it after the episode today and find the details on all the links, and more information is there. We have one more question here, and that is if two-factor authentication, if I do the configuration, can I configure it in a way that it's only needed when I access a firewall, for example, via a WAN interface, but not a LAN interface?
That's a good question so far. Currently it's bind on a user. So the user and the traffic is the decision maker here.
Okay.
But we can look into it. So I would say we are clarify this question a bit later.
Okay.
To see which configuration possibilities we have here. But I can tell you that at least two-factor is the future, and we are always improving this part. We are always try to make this configuration easier, but at the same time more detailed. So if it's not doable right now, then we take it as a feature request.
Super, so this is great. Thanks for the question. Then obviously it's something we haven't thought about it too much, and we will look into it. Torsten, any comment to that question?
No, just
okay.
His statement. Yeah.
Very good. So I don't think we have anything else for today. I thank you very much for being here, Torsten and Tobias. It was a pleasure to have you here. Our next Tech Talk will happen on the 24th of November. We will talk about Wi-Fi 6, and we will talk about one of our devices, NWA110AX, an access point we will have then, and we will talk about that with Patrick Hirscher, who is our MDM for wireless. So for today, thank you very much for joining, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We're Zyxel, and we're your networking ally.